Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Everyday Ministry. Thank you so much for being here. I have a dear friend, favorite person, favorite African. Bruce Chimani is here with me.
Favorite African, keyword.
Bruce, can you, before we get started in our conversation, we're going to talk about our favorite topic, evangelism, today. Can you tell me who you are, who makes up your family, how you ended up at Old North, and then what your role is there?
Yeah. Born in Zimbabwe, city called Bulawayo. Most people say Bulawayo, which butchered the name of my city. I wasn't born there, but that's where I grew up. Became a Christian at 16, got into the ministry at 23 at a very tender age. And I got married when I was 26 to Brittany. We've been married, I think 9 years end of this year.
Almost milestone.
2 kids, 1 on the way.
Oh.
Our kids are Nene and Itai. So, I've been at Old North since 2020, came as a ministry apprentice, was unfortunately trained by a guy named Marty. So if there's anything about me that's off, it's all on him.
It's his fault.
Yeah. So my role is college and young adults.
Okay.
Pastor. Yeah.
Pastor. Good. That's awesome. I know we've been blessed to see the fruit of your ministry, which is an amazing gift to be able to see the fruit from that. So grateful for that. So welcome. So let's get started. So we're going to talk about evangelism. We're going to talk about some gaps that maybe churches are struggling with or maybe not even aware of from non-Christian to believer. So first question, what's the typical path from visitor to believer in your context?
So my context is college students. It's complex because we are not always dealing with like visitors that are coming to a church. They are coming to a table on campus, or they are coming to an event we are holding on campus. And typically, again, I'm here obviously not as an expert. We're trying to figure this out all the time. But typically, a person will come through. We would have one of our student leaders follow up on them. Hopefully, get a coffee, sit down, get to know where they are. And if, obviously, we're talking about evangelism, if they're not a Christian, we want to figure out how to get them into like a smaller environment. It could be one-to-one Bible reading. It could be a quad, and ultimately get them involved in church. Now, it doesn't always work in a linear way. As you know, it's very, very complicated. I'm thinking of a guy who became a Christian in our ministry. And for him, everything just clicked as he heard preaching on a Sunday. While the work in one-to-one Bible studies was probably working, like the preached word ultimately did the work. So we have a pathway, go to meet one-to-one with a person, get into a small group or into a one-to-one Bible reading relationship, and hopefully be plugged into the church and hear the word preached. So something like that.
Yeah. So it's very personal. Like there's a lot of small group involvement, and then also just like one-to-one.
One-to-one.
Okay.
One-to-one tends to give you a better sense of where the person is and like what they, again, on campus, you're meeting Hindus and Muslims and all kinds of people. There's no like one size fits all because of that.
Yeah. So it's almost like a melting pot, but it's a broader opportunity or a better opportunity, I think, than compared to in my context where the people that I'm influencing are the people that I actually know. So it's not like a melting pot of college students where
broad.
You have access to a little bit more.
Yeah, it's very broad.
Yeah. Because I would say when I was thinking about putting this together, that the context of, it's just people that I interact with, or maybe that I've met through an event at church or something. Or I'm thinking of like moms with littles, the preschool group. Like a mom that shows up there is probably the, for a young mom type of context. That's where they're going to be introduced to church things, church life, and then Christians, obviously. And then from there, where do they get plugged in? And I think our women's ministry does a good job of having some type of line, even though it's pathway. But it's still not perfect. And then also it's unpredictable a little bit because there's people that I'm friends with that aren't moms or aren't married, and then what do you do with those people?
In that context, why would you say it's unpredictable? Like, why is it unpredictable? Because it's different from campus work. Or why would it be unpredictable?
I would say like different stage of life.
Right.
And then, if you're married and you have kids, I feel like your life experience is different than a college student. Like you don't know what they've walked through. So they're kind of entering in at a spot that you're not really sure.
Yeah.
Like most college students are walking in like they're starting their life, starting their career.
Yeah.
So that makes it hard. And then inconsistent, like where all the college students are going to be.
Oh, yeah.
So they're mostly there at school.
Yes.
But for a mom that I've randomly met, I don't know if I'll ever see her again if I initiate.
It's a park or,
I have to initiate that contact. So that's why it's a little bit harder with adults.
Yeah. It sounds like, as I'm thinking about it, it's complicated because people are people.
Yeah.
Right. I guess hence the importance of such conversations to figure out what's the best way to get them through a process.
Right. Yeah. And there's not one thing to point them to. There's a few things that I can point them to.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes it less linear, like you said.
That's really good.
So as we're thinking about like problems with the pathways or strategies, so where do you see gaps in your evangelistic approach?
Many, many gaps. I think initially there's an overwhelming sense in campus ministry. I think certainly even in a church context, we have all these people coming here. Like, what do we do with them? So that's the overwhelming, initially, what do I even do with all these people? We're exploring more recently doing an evangelism course because it seems like having a team of people to walk through for a couple of weeks, a course, they're asking the right questions, fills in the gap of what do we do immediately and where do we direct them to immediately. We have a gap with just sheer capacity. Like not everybody, unfortunately, is confident to engage non-Christians that are coming from complex, like say a different religion.
Right. So
a lot of college students are just scared, like how do I even, so it leaves a few people doing the ministry when really I think optimally it's everybody who should be doing that. So that's a gap just capacity wise. Those are a couple that I could think about, but maybe what about you? Like with women's ministry, would they be similar or different ones?
Yeah. I think from the people that I've interacted with and have the experience that I've had, Dave uses this term, Dave Jensen, who did the evangelism conference with us, just people being thrown into the deep end. Yeah. So when you meet a new Christian or someone considering Jesus, there's no spot to put them where they can like ask, in their dumb questions. They would say that even though there's no dumb question, but there's no spot to point them. And so they're thrown into this really heavy women's Bible study. And so, we're studying Leviticus, and it's just like for a new Christian, that's really hard. So that's where I see the biggest gap of, But then also similarly where it's, what's the word? Like, it's not one person ministry, it's everyone, but the ministry with a specific friend is relying and depending on my involvement. So is there a way to do ministry and to do basic sharing the gospel, foundational things within a group where it doesn't involve me singularly? So, and you and I went to Denver together to the Evangelize 24, and a lot of this stuff was brought to light. Just thinking about, can we think about evangelism pragmatically and not organically?
Yeah. So setting up the right types of structures that train many to do that work. I think that's the challenge. It doesn't seem like it's a common thing in America at all. The idea of like an evangelistic course, but it makes sense. It's you're able to train a few people and have a catchment area for a lot of people. So we are exploring that. I quite like, I've looked at a little bit at Discover. I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but I like I don't know if you know about Rory Shiner's and the ministry, Taste and See. I don't know if you've seen that one.
He's an author of ours, but I don't think I've heard he has a ministry called that. Okay.
No, it's an evangelistic course. It's a 4-week course that uses food. So I think it's something like every week. So the first week is creation. So, I think the course, I bought the course. I just have to use it now.
Yeah.
Use like green, like salads, creation.
Yeah.
Second week, the fall. So use junk food.
Interesting.
I think there's certainly something there. I think there's a gap, particularly here in America, that's not The personal side that I mentioned earlier on, I think is good, but it does, I think, just cause one person to depend, to be dependent on.
Right. I have a friend that I was telling you that was recently converted to Catholicism, and I was picking her brain about that process. And I don't know very much about the Catholic faith or like how you become a Catholic, but she was saying, so interestingly, like without even knowing any of my context or like what I learn and teach, she's telling me these things, and it just was really helpful. So she said, you know, she would go to Sunday morning mass, and then immediately after they would have a class, and you could, so if you just expressed, I want to become a Catholic, then you were involved in this class, and you go right after the sermon.
Oh, wow.
And you are able, you have all your questions that you, while you listen to the sermon, and then you ask leadership.
Wow.
You know, so you spend like half an hour right after the sermon. So really interesting.
That's
but then
very
also,
interesting.
I mean, we have similar stuff like sermon discussion, but it's
not the same.
Wednesday
night. Immediately
after.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I thought that was interesting, like an interesting take. But then also the person that's curious, that takes a lot of boldness to be like, all right, I'm going to show up for this. It takes a lot of boldness. So that's the hard part.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
I know churches, I'm thinking of churches in South Africa that do have a Q&A right after the sermon. I've never been in a church like that, but that's very interesting. I think it opens the door for people to ask questions. But the question is, will you have questions from your regulars, or will a non-Christian be bold enough to ask?
Yeah. So it is, I mean, there is like a culture shift. Like I think it is asking the lead pastor and the leadership team to shift it. And so reframe how you do the end of the service for the non-Christian that's come. So there are also some things that can be done that would be helpful for that audience.
Yeah.
Okay, Bruce, I just wanted to highlight a verse that Dave Jensen actually brought to light in Denver last year, and then Marty has used it several times. And so I think it's just a really good passage to kind of hone in on this point. Like, there's this group of people that we want to reach. And so Paul does a sermon, and in Acts 17, verse 32, it says, now when they heard of the resurrection of the dead, some mocked. So there's one group. But others said, we will hear you again about this. So there's another group. So there's a group there that they're curious about this man that beat death, and they want to hear about it again, but they're not sure. They're not convinced yet. So that just highlights the point we're trying to make, that there's this gap. There's these people that are grappling and wrestling with the news of the resurrection, and the gospel. And so what do we do with those people?
Yeah.
How are we noticing that group?
They're probably more than just those two categories too, right? Yeah. With Catholics, in my context, certainly I had a conversation this past school year with a Muslim kid who, unfortunately, I think, I'm trying to see what I did wrong, but he runs away from me now.
Oh no! So when you see him, he's like
he sees me, he ducks. But his friend was telling me that he just doesn't have answers for my questions. So that's a category of a person. It's the first time I've ever heard somebody like actually avoiding me. But then his friend, the friend of this guy, he's a Muslim. Jake and I have met with him a couple of times. So yeah, there's so many different groups of people. Yeah, I think that overwhelming sense is what causes us to ignore those gaps sometimes. So just like, what do I do with all these people? So.
Right. It's so overwhelming. And so I think that's why the idea of having some type of spot, a funnel into a course is much less daunting for me, that I can share the gospel or like get people into a room where we can talk about Christian things, not on my own.
Not on your own.
So because that's how you learn, right? That's how you grow in Bible study, because you hear what other people are saying, not only because of my personal study in the Bible.
And not only because of the teacher in the Bible study, it's the whole,
it's the one anothering, right?
The one anothering,
Yeah. So is that the answer? A course?
I think personally, I do think so. I think obviously there are so many other considerations. There are different sized churches. There's different access to resources, different specific needs. But it sounds about right that training a few people to get into a room with non-Christians to talk about the gospel. I mean, Yeah, I think there's so many, like we do walk-up evangelism, but we still need to think through where do we actually send these people. I still think, in my context especially, one-to-one interactions tend to help us figure out where a person is and what they need. But yeah, I think so. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's there's a lot of caveats, and I think you want to do a lot of things all at once. So I think training, you want a team. So you want people that are being left lookers or being one anothering. So they're trained in thinking that way, and then they can bring people alongside. But then you want people doing one-to-one. So you want the practice of like, hey, just the simple ask of, will you read the Bible with me? Like, our people should be doing that. So you want that happening, as well as having a spot like to funnel people to. And then you want, as Dave has said, the stats have shown the conversion doesn't happen during the evangelistic course. The conversion happens in the year of follow-up. So you have to have Christians that are committed to this evangelistic course and then committed to 12 months of follow-up. So what does that look like? And can you have a pathway? And I think with Matthias Media Resources, you can do You Mean the Bible. You can do Just for Starters. You could read
the Christian Gospel.
Yes, the Christian Gospel.
Expand a little bit more on it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can do. So if conversion happens after that course, then the follow-up matters too.
Yeah, but if you put yourself in the shoes of like a pastor somewhere in a rural Indiana, pastor of a church with 30, 40 people, 50 people, which is pretty average. If he has to do all that himself, so preach the sermon on Sunday, put the evangelistic course, follow, it becomes daunting. So I do think the first part of creating that culture within the church where the ministry is done by everyday Christians and not just the pastor, it becomes our church thing rather than, he's the evangelist. I think the pastor needs to be an evangelist for sure. To set the example for believers in speech and in conduct. But it's overwhelming. I felt it when we were doing, because what we've been trying to do a course currently, but trying to figure out how do I lead our group towards that and do everything else that I have to do. It's a lot. It's a lot. But for like our ministry, which is very much well resourced with people and all the other things. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot. And it's sometimes, I get in that spiral where I'm like, well, nothing else matters. Forget the people that are already Christians. I need to focus on all this. And that's not right either. But it is an overwhelming task. And I think, to your point, you are a pastor, so you have that perspective. Like, you really do need Christians to lock arms with you. And so it's one small step at a time, I think, and a lot of prayer. So what do you think? So going forward, so we're wrestling with this, trying to untangle what to do next. So what's one thing that you can help, maybe as a church, someone move towards Christ, but then you maybe a personal aspect too, like what's one thing that you would do to help someone move towards Christ?
I think that I think there's a theological reality that, like, we all need to believe that eternity is real, judgment is coming. So the urgency, because I think you can do a lot of things, but I think that the motivation, if it's not found in what Paul's saying, the love of Christ controls him, the fear of the Lord. He thinks about the fear of the Lord. He thinks about judgment day coming and like he's controlled. So I wonder if a lot of people get that, like in our guts, that this is important. To your point, I think, we can say evangelism is way more important than everything. But I think there's a sense in which that is actually true. Right? There's an urgency to it that it's actually true. Of course, we disciple the Christians and we help them grow. So I want to believe that more and more. And I want to view, again, Paul in 1 Corinthians 5, he's not viewing everybody with the same eyes because they are lost and without Christ, their eternity is doomed. So I wonder if there's that theological shift in our hearts first before we start doing anything practical. And the practical things could just be sitting down with, if you have some form of a team, like, where are the non-Christians, either in our church? What are we doing with just asking honest questions? Where are our people meeting non-Christians? How can we train our people to engage in conversations with them that would lead them to Christ? I actually think it's a mind shift and an internal shift before some of the practical practical things. So share the gospel course. I'm doing that with a couple students. We're on week 9 this coming week. It's funny, from week 1, where you're asking them questions about what are a couple people that you want to pray for and evangelize, and coming to week 8 and 9 where they've written a testimony. I've seen like a clear mind shift, like a 180. I pray for that for as many of our people, because that changes. I think that changes everything.
Yeah. It's the love of Christ that compels us, and so if you aren't sharing the gospel, then you don't really know it yet. And so that's such a good point. I love that. I think I talk about 2 Corinthians 5 way too much. So thank you for bringing it up.
So good. It's so good. Yeah, because I think the scriptures, I think, rightly cause us to ask the right types of questions. Because I think we can ask questions pragmatically because it just sounds good. But are we moved by the love of Christ to look at our neighbors and say, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, right.
I think if we just ask those questions, constantly surrounded by non-Christians on campus, and it's overwhelming. And there's a lot of pragmatic things we could do. We could, let's have another fun event.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, that's not always the answer.
Right. And the things that you can't pragmatically plan for are when someone is coming to you and you're tired and done and it's very inconvenient, and then you have to, in your love of Christ, have to sacrifice and just handle it. Yeah, I think for me, what I want to grow in and what I want my co-Christians to grow in is just to the language of just like talking about Christian things. So I think if you have an evangelism team and you're just talking about what's happened that week or that month, I think it's really encouraging for the sister or brother next to you.
Yeah.
But then I also want to grow in just to making Bible reading with someone so regular. So it's a question that's on the tip of my tongue at all times. And so I think you can move someone towards Christ by just saying, would you like to read the Bible with me? And start there. And then I think if you're afraid to do that, start with a Christian. Be like, hey, you want to read the Bible with me? Because I want to do this with my neighbor or whoever.
Then you're more comfortable with non-Christians. So just talking about spiritual things so normative that saying, we can read the Bible together. I think it's an ecosystem of words. I'm able to talk about cars in a way that I'm not talking about myself. I know nothing
You're
about
not a car
cars.
expert.
But if you are into cars and you work at a car dealership, being able to talk about that and talk about them from the perspective of a Christian, because I do think we think about everything very differently because of our love for Christ. That's definitely, I think, a place I think I want to keep growing. Most of the times I just want to talk about soccer.
Soccer.
Or coffee, But how do I talk about those things and glorify the Lord as I do it?
Yeah. It's a hard task, but also I'm grateful that it's work that God has put in front of us. So as we close, Bruce, is there anything that you're looking forward to, like this coming fall, or strategies or things that you're thinking about in the context of evangelism that you're...
I think we last year we did quite well with our Bible reading groups, which we call quads, doing walk-up evangelism. But what we didn't do as well is actually probably one of the most important things, like prayer. I'm trying to figure out how to, together with some of the campus ministries that we have on campus that are sort of the same evangelical faith, like just pray more for our campus. I do tend to think more about what I can do. And I love to do things,
right?
But I shamefully don't. I'm not as prayerful as I should be. So just like trying to shift our group towards that. Let's go out and evangelize and do all this work. But how can we strategically pray to God these big prayers for our campus? So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to, we're going to be starting like a dorm Bible studies, which we have never done before. Our Bible studies haven't been like focused on dorms. I'm curious what evangelistic opportunities come out of that, but baking all of this stuff in prayer. What about you? Anything you're looking forward to for the fall?
I echo that about prayer, especially. I think prayer is one of those things where you do and nobody knows you're doing it, other than God himself. But so my motivation shouldn't be, I want everybody to know what I'm doing. And so prayer is one of those humbling reminders of like, no, all glory belongs to God.
Yeah,
I don't want to be a glory thief. And I really do care about people and I want them to be saved. So I think praying and the practice of praying and praying more and praying bigger, I think is a good
praying
goal.
bigger. We evangelicals, sometimes we tend to, the more theology we know, the more we know about doctrine and God and verses, the more we like actually turn to be pragmatic. And not pray as much. And I feel that conviction. Being a former charismatic, right? I prayed way more then, but I didn't have good theology. Now I have good theology, but kind of want to go on my own strength. So it's very convicting.
Very good. Well, Bruce, I could talk all day about ministry, but thank you so much for joining us.
Lindsey.
It was a good conversation.
It was fun.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, I want to tell you about an evangelistic course from Matthias Media called Discover. It's brand new, designed specifically with churches in mind. Discover is a flexible 5-week course that gives churches a clear, repeatable starting point for evangelism. It works through the Gospel of Luke using the 2 Ways to Live framework, helping leaders ensure the gospel is taught clearly and consistently to those exploring Christianity. If you're a pastor or ministry leader thinking about how to build a sustainable evangelistic funnel, not just one-off events, Discover provides a simple structure your church can run regularly and confidently. Churches can purchase Discover and access all of the course resources, including leader videos, at matthiasmedia.com. You can just search for Discover. My kids have seen that live action Mufasa on Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah.
And Lane will randomly start singing the one song. They love the soundtrack. And it's about Mufasa and Scar like singing. And he goes, "I've always wanted a brother." And so she'll just randomly be like, "I always wanted a brother." Like, what in the heck?
That's Lane?
It's Lane, yeah.
Precious.
It's like, I need to sing more Bible verses so they get stuck in their head. It's the same with Gwen with softball chants. Like, she learned like 12 new chants. And I'm like,
she just blessed them out. Yesterday, they all these kids went to like watch a movie or something. And apparently whatever movie they watched, there was a fish named Bruce and my kids. So apparently Nanny in the movie house was like, "What? Like Baba?" Yeah. And when I got home, I walk in and then it's like, when we walk home, they'll like run away like Monster. It's like a low game we play. But yesterday she's like, "Oh, Ty, Monster, let's hide." And then it's like, "Bruce." It was so funny. And then a couple times kept saying, "Bruce Chimani."
Bruce Chimani. Yeah, she thinks it's funny. Kids are funny.